All right, so welcome to our afternoon workout. And actually, we're going to do a work in. Sometimes we get so focused on doing our workouts, we forget to work in. So I'm going to talk about that today. But I've got a few moves that I want to teach today based on some questions that I've had from viewers. So we're going to start with an axil extension. And this is very simply a way that you move your body in everyday life, whether you're walking, sitting. It's so that you move from your center. So the axis, that's what we're talking about, the axil plane. And a lot of times we are disconnected from that. And there's many reasons why, but we'll go into specifically what you can do physically for that right now. So the first thing we're going to do is take our feet to right under, if we were hanging from a bar, where our legs would hang. So they would naturally hang right about hip distance apart. And that's a great placement for where we would stand and actually walk. So if you tend to walk with one foot in front of the other, that's something that I would check for with a gait and knowing that probably there's some tight hip or knee issues. So be aware of that, and that's the first placement. So we want our feet to be hip distance apart and the toes spread out so that you have that platform of the base, your base, and it's your foundation. So from there, we want to look at the knees. The knees should not be locked out. We're never going to lock our knees out, but we also don't want to we don't want to overbend them because that's going to put a lot of excess work on our quads and the rest of our framework. So the knees should be slightly bent. So there's a micro bend in them, not locked out. And that's the next piece of what we're moving up to, which is then to our belly button. So imagine your belly button being attached to the inside, and we're going to just pull the belly button to the spine. We're not going to change anything else. So if you look at if we look at my movement here, you will not be able to see me do any kind of movement when I pull my belly button into my spine. So I'm not doing any shifting with my body at all. I'm literally just activating this axil plane by sewing my belly button into my spine. So that's going to connect that center. And once we've got that in place, we're going to focus on this chest area. So a lot of us tend to be forward because of our lifestyle. So, and it's very, very common. I have that issue constantly. So I'm constantly having to work on this. So it's not judgment. It's just, this is what we have to work on. One of the things that you can do is focus on your breath. So let's take a really big breath in. And when you get to that high point of inhalation into your lungs, you can feel how your lungs are lifted and you're open in your chest. Come back to a point where your chin is slightly down, and that's where your chest should be and stay. So when we exhale, we don't want to come back into this position. So let's go back, get the feet in your placement, the connection. The knees have a micro bend, and there's activation going all the way up through the muscles of the legs. And then we've got the belly button sewn into the spine. Inhale. And then the chest right in that position. The cheekbones are right over that collarbone. So we don't want to be forward head. We want the cheekbones right over that collarbone. And that's the position for correct stance, for correct walking. We're going to use this now and practice that. Once you feel like you've got that stance, then you can't see my feet, but we're going to take one leg and lift it off, and watch what happens for yourself as well. If you can do this with me, if you lift one leg off, the first time you do this, you may start pulling to one direction, one or the other. If that happens, I'm going to teach you a neurological tool that you can do to help balance the right and left brain. So let's do that again. We have our placement of our feet, and we're going to take one foot off. Everything else is in place. That we haven't changed anything in our axil plane. And then we're going to stand with one. So right now I'm balancing on one leg. Nothing should change in your body. Your chest shouldn't fall. Your head shouldn't go forward. Your belly's still pulled into your spine. And the other standing leg has a micro bend in it, and your foot is strong as a platform. So once you've got that, and you can do that on both legs, I'm going to do this so I can feel how I'm weaker and I'm pulling to my left. So that means right now I'm very dominant on my left side. And so I'm going to balance that by squeezing my right hand and activating the energy in the neurological framework. The right brain controls the left side, and the left side controls the left side of the brain controls the right. We actually want them balanced. So if you feel like you're pulling off to one side, squeeze the hand or activate the other side and see if that doesn't help come back into balance. Just really simple thing to do. So when you do that, and I just noticed myself starting to collapse down there, be sure you haven't lost anything else of that axil extension, where your chest is lifted, you're breathing fully, your chin is in position, tongue rests on the roof of the mouth. So all those principles that we've been building on, that's your plane. That's what you want to walk in or work on. Now let's do the walk with that, with all of that in, and having our body balanced here. So we're going to just check everything. We feel a little bit confident now that we've practiced on one leg. So we're just going to start with our gait. You're going to bring one leg up and extend it, if you can see this. So I'm bringing a leg up and I'm just extending. And because of what we just did, you should feel a lot more balanced. Now let's go ahead and step forward. And when you take that step forward, your body comes with it as a one whole piece. It doesn't fall forward in this way. Hope that makes sense. So let's practice that. The axil extension begins at the feet in a good hip distance apart where you're stable. That means you're activating all the way outside of the thighs, abductors, adductors. Everything's alive and active. Knees have that micro bend, belly in the spine, chest. At that breath in, and head is in that position where it's, I like the cheekbones over the collarbone or the head on top of the body idea. And then let's go ahead and see what we've got with that extension. So extending one leg. If you start feeling like you're going to fall to one side, use the other hand just for a few moments, and that should help balance out, especially if we're dealing with a neurological imbalance. And then we're going to take that step. So when you take your step, be really mindful that you're keeping your axil extension. You're not leading with your head. You're leading with your center. And so then you can begin to walk and do all of your movements with that beautiful extension. And that is how we want to be moving. We want to get up and down from our chairs and in the car that way, as opposed to the opposite of collapsing everything. You can start to feel the difference when you practice that. And these are really simple things that you can do that will activate the whole system of the body. Okay, the next one I'm going to do is hip shifting. And this is so lovely. With the hips, we're going to bring our awareness here. Again, this is part of working in, taking the time to connect internally to our own self, emotions, what's happening, and not be so, let's go get a workout, or let's see what else outside of me can influence me. I really want you to understand taking the time to work in is really what Yoga Lachi is about, is really what I'm trying to impart. And these subtle, simple things, I know they're so simple, but they're profound when we do them. Okay, so I've begun my hip shifting, and here's what we're doing. From our stance of our hip distance apart, very comfortable, all we're going to do is begin shifting. So we still have our axil shape, and then I'm shifting to one side and emptying to about 10% left in the floating leg, or in the leg that's empty. And then I'm going to shift over slowly to the other side, almost as if I'm doing a circle. And then I'm slowly shifting to empty. Not big movements. And then I'm shifting back. So I want you to practice shifting, and you can do this almost in a circular motion, very slow, very relaxed. where you put the majority of the weight, 90%, in the standing leg that's strong. It still has that micro bend. You still have your chest lifted, the belly's into the spine, but then you have one leg that's empty and relaxed, and it's almost hanging there. So we're going to allow that extension through the leg to occur, and then we're going to begin to shift our weight back around, emptying to the other side. Again, we're working in. We're recognizing what's happening in our body. We're allowing the central nervous system to come into parasympathetic, so into that relaxed state where we can digest what's happening to our body. This is when we start to tune in. This is where insights happen. This is where, when I'm working with a client and we really work in this deep way, there are insights that can occur where they wouldn't before, because we're so we're seeking things outside of ourselves. And there's much that we can learn when we tune in to ourselves. So we'll just continue that, and you can go at your own pace and shift as you like, just feeling that. While you could do this at your standing desk, and I will shift, consciously pushing my hips back and forth, doing this in a mindful way, being very present, and shifting the weight 90% to one side, and then letting one leg hang and just be fully empty, fully relaxed, almost hanging there, is really what hip shifting is about. This is, again, that work that balances the brain, the neurological system. So we want to invite that into our workouts. All right, so the next thing I wanted to show you is fingers and wrist stretches. Some folks have been asking me because they've been typing away, working on their books and doing lots of good things, which is awesome. Very simply, I would take a break, set your timer again as needed, but with the good form, the good axil extension, extend one arm out, and we're just going to bring the hand down, and we're going to put a little bit of pressure on the fingers, and we can put enough pressure that we create a gentle sensation of a stretch. And then you'll notice on my elbow, what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring the inside of my elbow more into me, and that's going to stretch. Now, tune into this, and when you do this, you're going to feel this go all the way up to the crown, to the delt, all the way up into the scalenes. And if you've been working with me on trigger points, and you know how everything's connected. So we take just a moment there, and we can stretch, and then we'll release that out. Now you can do any of these finger stretches, and I highly recommend doing that movement. So again, I'm just bringing that, rotating the elbow. Once I've got that stretch in there, I'm rotating the elbow, because all of that's connected. And when you do that and you put a little bit of pressure against that hand, you can feel it all the way back into the middle trapezius muscles. All right, so we'll do that on the other side. Just since we're here, we'll get both arms done. Got it straight and shoulders pocketed, and then we're just going to wrap and bring that inside of the elbow to the inside of the, back to the midline. Just a few seconds breathing. Good, and then we can do the same type of movement, type of stretching there. Put a little bit of pressure so that you can activate back through the traps. You don't want to be out forward, you want to be activated in the trapezius. And then we'll just wrap, and we can just hug that shoulder and wrap gently around there. Okay, really simple, easy things. Let's do rhomboid and traps to stretch. Shoulders pocketed, the arm comes in front, and then we're going to look away. And just check in. Practicing that axil extension is such a great daily practice to have. So we can take that across, so I can feel, oh, my right's really, really tight. That's the mouse arm for me. So I can feel how tight that is. Hope that you're recognizing that ability to stretch that and take good care of your body as you're doing the work that you have to do. All right, so those are some very simple things that you can do. Great to add as a sit break. Maybe make a post-it note of 3 or 4 of those that you can do regularly. It's not something once a day, really. You want to do this regularly, especially if you're typing a lot or on the mouse a lot, or whatever you're doing. We want to have some of these tools in our toolbox. The axil extension is pretty important, because if we allow ourselves to, even if we're working out and we're doing lots of crunches, that can really shorten the space here, which causes a lot of other issues. So let's remember that going forward. Nice axil extension, breathing. It's not sticking your chest out, so let's make sure we're not doing that. It's just that we're taking a big breath in, and when we get to that high point of inhalation, that's about where, and then you relax, that's where you should be with your chest, and then the tongue resting on the roof of the mouth. I want to teach you one other beautiful technique, and that is neurological emotional technique. You may have heard of emotional freedom technique. I've taught that before. This is a beautiful technique that I learned when I was training as a neuro-linguistic programming practitioner, NLP practitioner. Fabulous, fabulous tools. And this is so simple. It's almost so simple that I have forgotten to even bring it up, but I'm going to share it again. This is activating acupressure points. So I've talked about reflex points, so I won't get too much into them. This does go, it's just so simple. Let me just get to this. So we're going to cross the midline, which is another nice little benefit, but we're going to take the 3 fingers and we're going to put them inside, right along the inside of that thumb at the wrist. And we are going to put a little bit of pressure there, and then we're going to take that hand and place it over the forehead. Now, we do this when we're stressed out or we have a feeling of anxiety, anything like that. So you want to actually be thinking of whatever it is that you are feeling anxiety about, or fear or anger or frustration, whatever the feeling is. Especially if it's caught up and it's just kind of replaying over and over. So this is a great point. And then you just breathe and hold at the forehead. It's so interesting how our neurological connections to our physiological connections are, they're completely intertwined. And when we have simple tools like this, it really helps. So then we're going to do the other side, and we're just going to cross one hand over the other. We're going to press into that wrist very gently. And then we're going to take that hand to the forehead and take a breath in. And so think of whatever is stressing you out, maybe something that's been going on. In EFT, emotional freedom technique, we usually judge it. We give it a number from 1 to 10, just so we can gauge that it's lessening. You could do that as well with this, but really it's so easy. You don't have to get into too much stuff, and it can feel so good. Breathing in. Okay, so that's another tool for you to use and have in your toolbox going forward, because you can use it any time. Doesn't really matter. We want to have the self-care toolbox, this self-care toolbox ready to hand, and then we also want to have things as a natural daily rhythm that we're always looking to repair ourselves. I wanted to mention one other thing about sleep, as I was asked a question about this, and that is that not being able to go to sleep and even getting to the point of insomnia is often because there's too much stimulation. And my suggestion is, and has been in the past, to shut off the digital connection, shut off the TV, shut off the Netflix, shut off the news, shut off the digital world long enough before your time of going to sleep, because your body has got to come back down to a space where it can restore enough to be able to go to sleep. If you're having nightmares or if you're really struggling to get to sleep, that tells me there is a lot of stimulation, a lot of things going on in the person's life. And because when we go to sleep, that's when we are able to process things. But if there's too much, then it's overwhelming and we are not able to process through that. So what I would suggest is taking more time off of the digital world, off the news, even with TV, even with watching and kind of zoning out with TV, any innocuous TV shows, because what happens is really we're already in a hypnotic state. So those images are like hypnotic trances that we're kind of putting ourselves in. So it would be very beneficial to create a practice for yourself. And I know it can be difficult if you've not really done a lot of inner work. A lot of clients that come to me have tried, have gone a little bit into that area. So I know I'm not speaking just completely to people that don't do this at all, but there are times, especially like now, where it can get so overwhelming that we struggle with the internal pieces of our emotions and we really just want to numb out with food, with TV, etc. But I really believe that that is not the best thing that we can be doing. And if I know it's painful, but if you can get connected and stay connected to someone who's going to help you, someone who's going to support you, be connected to and plugged into supportive connections. Sometimes that means unplugging completely, but we want to make sure you're doing the inner work that needs to be done. It's not just during these times, right? The inner work, I probably spend 2 hours a day on inner work, and have for the last probably decade. And even with that 2 hours a day, there are still things that occur, right? But that working on that inner work, you can read any of the greats, Emerson. I don't want to go on this, but I want to get this point across that we have to take the time to do our inner work and not get so caught up in all of like, what's the next thing I do? Even as business owners, right now there's a big push with a couple of groups that I'm in of like, okay, what's the next thing we have to get out there and get monetized. And it's like, you know what? I need to actually step back. I don't know what it is. And so that's why I've just, for the last 2 weeks, just done these free videos. Like I just need to kind of process this myself. And this is kind of my way of processing in a way, because as I say this and speak this, it's what I need to learn as well. And I imagine that's for you as well. So find what's going to work for you, but understand that balance of inner work with the outer work of our bodies and what shows up is part and parcel with our well-being. All right, so I hope that helps. Tomorrow is our last day of me doing the 8 a.m. and the 4 p.m. And we're getting ready to start a 28-day reset. I have the free training of Finding Joy Beyond Trauma on Thursday. It is amazing. I did this when I was helping with sexual abuse and trauma, and this translates directly over to what's going on now. So please invite your friends, share with anyone you know might need it. Come and join us for that free training. And so there you go. And let's practice those axil extensions and all the other tools that you've added to your toolbox. Okay? Peace and blessings.